Formula One doesn't admit this out loud, but Red Bull stopped building neutral race cars a long time ago. What they build now is far more dangerous for the rest of the grid, because every major Red Bull design decision, every uncomfortable handling trait, every razor-thin setup window points back to one name: Max Verstappen. And the moment you understand why Red Bull keeps building F1 cars around him, you realize why so many talented drivers have failed in the same machinery, and why 2026 could make this strategy even more extreme. Here's the uncomfortable truth most fans miss. Red Bull doesn't believe in balance anymore. They believe in leverage. In a cost-cap era where you cannot out-develop rivals forever, the smartest advantage isn't aerodynamic tricks or clever suspension geometry. It's building a car that only one driver on the planet can truly unlock. And Red Bull found that driver years ago. By 2023, Max Verstappen wasn't just winning races. He was winning in ways that broke traditional performance models. He won on tracks that should have punished Red Bull. He won in conditions that exposed instability. He won while teammates couldn't even stay within half a second. That's when Red Bull stopped asking, how do we make the car easier to drive? And started asking something far more ruthless: why would we? Because here's the part nobody likes to say. Formula One doesn't reward fairness, it rewards results. And Verstappen delivers them at a level that makes compromise pointless. Think about the RB19. On paper, it wasn't the most forgiving car. Engineers openly admitted it rotated aggressively on entry, demanded precise throttle modulation mid-corner, and punished hesitation. Yet Verstappen dominated the season with a win rate above 80%. Meanwhile, Sergio Perez, a multiple race winner with a reputation for tyre management, oscillated between podiums and midfield anonymity. Same car, same team, completely different outcomes. Ask yourself this: if one driver can extract championship-winning performance from a car that actively punishes everyone else, why would you dilute that concept? And this is where the story becomes uncomfortable. Red Bull's design philosophy under Adrian Newey and Pierre Wack evolved around Verstappen's instincts. Max prefers a sharp front end. He accepts rear instability if it gives rotation. He's comfortable correcting microslides at high speed. Telemetry shows he applies throttle earlier than most drivers, even when grip isn't fully settled. That's not something you teach. That's neurological. That's built in. Here's what nobody talks about. Designing around Verstappen doesn't just maximize his strengths, it weaponizes his differences. Other drivers need predictability. Verstappen thrives in chaos. And yes, before someone types it in the comments, no, this doesn't mean Red Bull is anti-teammate. It means Red Bull understands something most teams refuse to accept. In modern F1, optimizing for your best driver beats optimizing for everyone. This is where you can tell who's watching closely. If you're still here, you're not a casual fan, you're the kind of viewer who understands that Formula One is as political as it is technical. And that's probably why you're already subscribed, or at least you're thinking, all right, this channel actually gets it. Now let's talk pressure. Because building cars around Verstappen isn't without consequences. Every Red Bull teammate since Daniel Ricciardo has faced the same invisible trap. The car doesn't meet them halfway, the setup window is narrow, the confidence threshold is brutal. One mistake and the lap time collapses. Alex Albon admitted the car felt like it was trying to spit you out. Pierre Gasly described a constant fight on entry. Perez has openly said he struggles when the rear becomes too light, which is exactly where Verstappen comes alive. But here's the twist nobody expected. Red Bull didn't retreat from this philosophy after seeing those struggles. They doubled down. Because Verstappen didn't just survive these traits, he exploited them. He used instability as rotation. He used sharpness as adaptability. While other drivers lost confidence, Max gained margin. Now pause for a second and think about 2026. New regulations, new power units, a 50-50 split between internal combustion and electric deployment, less downforce, more driver input, more energy management, more throttle discipline. Ask yourself honestly, who does that favor? This is where the story escalates. The 2026 regulations will reward drivers who can modulate power delivery mid-corner without destabilizing the car. Drivers who understand when to lift, when to deploy, and when to commit despite partial grip. Drivers who don't need the car to be calm to be fast. That description doesn't fit many drivers. It fits Verstappen disturbingly well. Telemetry comparisons over the last few seasons show Max consistently achieves faster corner exits even when traction is compromised. His throttle traces are smoother, earlier, and more decisive. While others hesitate to avoid wheel spin, Verstappen rides the edge. That's not aggression, that's calculation. Here's the uncomfortable question nobody in the paddock wants to answer. What happens if Red Bull builds the 2026 car to amplify that trait instead of suppress it? Because that's the logical next step. And before you think this is speculation, Red Bull insiders have already hinted that future cars will demand more driver contribution. Christian Horner has praised Max's adaptability under changing conditions. Engineers have openly said Verstappen provides feedback others simply can't articulate. If you're enjoying this level of breakdown, this is usually the point where people realize they're watching something different. Not hype, not reaction, actual analysis. And that's kind of the standard here. But let's not pretend this strategy is risk-free. Designing around one driver creates fragility. If Verstappen is injured, unavailable, or leaves, the system collapses. If regulations swing away from his strengths, Red Bull could find itself with a car no one can drive properly. And rivals are watching closely. Mercedes learned this lesson the hard way by building cars around aerodynamic theory instead of driver feel. Ferrari oscillated between philosophies and paid the price. Red Bull, however, made a calculated gamble that Verstappen's ceiling is higher than any regulation swing. So far, they've been right. But here's where the stakes rise. Because 2026 isn't just a regulation change. It's a reset of competitive order. New manufacturers, new engines, new performance curves. And if Red Bull nails the power unit while continuing to design around Verstappen's instincts, the rest of the grid won't just be chasing lap time. They'll be chasing a driver-machine symbiosis that can't be copied. And that's the part that should worry everyone else. Not because Max Verstappen is unbeatable, but because Red Bull has stopped trying to build cars anyone else could win with. So here's the question I want you to answer in the comments, and don't overthink it. Do you believe Red Bull is right to sacrifice driver accessibility for maximum performance? Or does this strategy eventually backfire when conditions change? There's no safe answer. And that's why this conversation matters. Because the next chapter of Formula One isn't about fairness, it's about alignment. And right now, no team is more aligned with its driver than Red Bull is with Max Verstappen. If you want to see how this philosophy could shape the 2026 grid and why it might create another era before it even begins, the next video on your screen breaks that story open from a completely different angle. This one was just the foundation.